I was so displeased with you at the end of the last episode, DJ, because it was episode 300 for us lifetime, and we didn't bring it up whatsoever. We totally skated by like it was just another episode. And here you, like the guy, like I kind of think of you as like this unsung leader that needs to know these kind of things, and you were just silent the whole time. What the hell is the deal?
What? Unsung leader, number one, you're displeased with me for not knowing you were toning up 299 the episode before. Number two, I'm not an unsung leader. I don't do fucking anything. I just come here and talk.
I can't argue with that. Let's get loaded. Because this is the Loaded Box Podcast,
where we never finish first because we finish last.
So here's the deal. This is what I'm going to do. I feel like anyone can get to 300. 301 is the real magic number. Like that's what we should be celebrating. So I think randomly throughout the episode, I'll probably just scream 301, like stuff like that, just to make a big deal about it. Oh, that's like, even better.
Like Aaron Rodgers 301, like Cam Newton stuff.
I don't disagree with that, but yeah, I'm upset with us for not pointing it out. We pointed it out on episode 299, totally glanced over episode 300, but we're back. We're making a big deal about episode 301, and Matt Hicks is with us, and we've had him on at least once or twice, I believe, in the past talking about NFL draft prospects. Today, we're going to break down a handful of wide receivers, but Matt, I've got to ask you, how special do you feel getting to come on and be the guest of episode 301, the one that we're really going to celebrate?
I'm blown away. I'm so honored to be here for 301. And I appreciate that you made it special for me. Right. Bringing me on at 301, 300 would be crap. Right. So I'm glad I get to be 301.
300 is cliche.
Right. Yeah, it's trash. I mean, let's just call it what it is. 301 is what it's about.
Yeah.
Hey, I thought it was a good episode. The problem is the one that we're celebrating here, like the two of us that have football apparel on, I'm rocking a Dolphin sweatshirt who have just been the epitome of the bottom of the league. And you're not much better. Good thing your name covers up your shirt at least. You're wearing a Giants shirt. DJ, you could have saved the podcast by throwing something Packers on, but you're just all willy-nilly with your North Carolina hat.
Well, if you look at the back, you can see that there's that wall thing you gave me, the Packer.
You got a magnifying glass. Jesus.
It's back there, bro. It's back there. I got a football in my hand. I am repping the NFL. Wilson football.
Fair enough. Well, like I said, we're talking NFL draft wide receivers with Matt Hicks. He's the director of fantasy football for NFL Draft Bible on Sports Illustrated, and he's the host of the draft seminar for the NFL Draft Bible podcast network. So, Matt, let's hear more about your work, what you're currently doing, where people can find your work, what's going on.
Yeah, man, this is my time of the year. I love it. It's for me, it's all about the NFL draft. It's all about the rookies, kind of scouting that process and trying to figure out ways to find value with the incoming rookies for fantasy football purposes specifically. So, doing that in a couple spots. We got Rookie Big Board on YouTube, and that's an audio podcast as well. NFL Draft Bible is where all the written stuff, and we're now on Fan Nation via Sports Illustrated, so that's pretty sweet. And then we also got the patreon.com/theFFeducator, which is where I go in with all my rankings in detail, scouting reports on all of these rookies. So kind of doing a lot right now, but it 'tis the season.
That's awesome. And we actually had your boy Zach Petra on, and I say his name inaccurately, both on purpose and by accident, because he always tells me the right way, and then I never remember it. So I just go with Petra all the time. But why I was bringing that up to you is because for all of our NFL draft positional previews, we've been putting our guests through something we're calling the Loaded Box PowerBlast. And I would say of all the people we've had on so far, Zach walked into that thing and he was on like ice skates. He just glided right through it. Nothing hung him up whatsoever. So big shoes to fill. You may or may not really know unless he gave you a little bit of a heads up as to what the Power Blast is. But since you're going into it blindly, because I see you shaking your head no, what kind of thoughts go through your mind when you hear the words Power Blast? Are you nervous? Are you excited? A combination?
Yeah, I'm pretty terrified.
I I can't wait.
It's a very ominous power blast, man. I mean, this could be a variety of things, and I'm almost sure to do terrible at it. So
I can't wait. With those kind of expectations, you set the bar low, you're going to jump right over that thing. So I'm not worried about it.
That's next level thinking right there.
There you go. Let's start with your comfort zone then. Let's talk a little bit about Jamar Chase. A lot of people's wide receiver 1 out of LSU.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Chase is my wide receiver 1. I think it's pretty easy for me. For me, he's a prospect that does it all. He's really well rounded. I think he's got really nice hands, sticky hands, probably the best hands in this class, which is really important. Sometimes we don't prioritize that when talking about rookies. I mean, it sounds silly, but we really don't sometimes. He has great athleticism. He's good at the contested catch point. He's got good straight line speed moving downfield. He's a solid route runner. There's not really anything Jamar Chase does bad. So he grades out really, really well for me as a prospect. So he is my wide receiver 1, and it's pretty far and away.
DJ, you were like head over heels about this guy 2 years ago when he was playing with Joe Burrow, and you were basically saying this guy could come into this year's draft and be the wide receiver 1. I know you're still really high on him, but I'll let you kick it off with your question and thought to Matt.
Wow, you're putting me on the spot like I prepared or something for this. No, I don't even have a question. I just have more comments on Jamar Chase because I was obsessed with him. Obviously, we saw him or didn't see him in 2020 at all, and I think all of our attention turned towards Justin Jefferson in the season he put on there. I don't know. What's the weaknesses? What does he have a weakness?
He really doesn't, man. And I'm not somebody that grades easily. There's nothing bad. Everything he does grades to a starter level projection, like down to the blocking. Everything he does well. So it's hard for me to pick out a weakness. Like some people will, I think, nitpick a little bit in digging to his route running more than I think like more than I would. I'll say it like that because route running is not actually a trait that translates, I think, at a super high level to the NFL anyways. But, I think if you're going to dig, you could dig at his route running. But for me, he runs the whole tree. Like he might not be as technically refined as somebody like Jerry Jeudy or CeeDee Lamb coming out, but like most guys aren't. And it's not a priority. Really for me, like at the NFL, they're going to teach you the routes that they need you to run on the system that they're going to put you in. And you're going to run those routes and do well if you're as talented as Jamar Chase. So that's a long-winded answer of saying there's really no weaknesses, man. He's well-rounded.
Yeah, it's weird when you get guys like that come into the NFL, they don't really they're just natural top wide receivers. And I would think even a Julio Jones, probably not the greatest route. They're just too big to be really clean route runners. DK Metcalf, obviously his big knock was he couldn't fucking turn right and turn left and everything. Doesn't matter. He's a big physical freak. If you just have that much athleticism, you're going to be a top wide receiver in the league. I think about Devontae. He's got a great vertical, but he was never that athletic freak. And he just became a ridiculous route runner, which has made him awesome. But a guy like this, he's going to be a number 1 wide receiver just coming into the league.
And for the clarity's sake of the audience,
Devontae.
DJ always says Devontae when he's talking about Devontae Adams, despite the fact that there are numerous Devontaes now that are relevant.
Well, if we're talking about elite wide receivers here,
we're talking about NFL draft wide receiver, so it gets a little bit shady.
Yeah, well, whatever,
Matt, my question to you is a little bit of a two-parter. I wanted to know what's your absolute favorite realistic landing spot for Chase, and what's your absolute least favorite realistic landing spot? And does he have that type of talent? If he were to go to your least favorite, is he the kind of guy that can transcend that and still be a productive wide receiver in the league?
Yeah, so for me, I think Chase is a top 10 guy off the board. Like, I really don't think he's making it into double digits from the NFL perspective. And so that does limit our options a little bit in terms of where he may go. I like the idea of him landing in Miami. I really do, because I think that there's something special there with Tua. I'm a big Tua fan, still am. And now, they're building out with Will Fuller. They're putting Devontae Parker in there. So they're going to have to, these defenses are going to have to spread out the coverage, right? And it's going to give some good opportunity for a guy like Chase to come in, step in, perform right away. And also, we're starting to get it's a young offensive line in Miami, but I'm excited about what that offensive line is going to look like in a year or two. So I like the idea of Miami. I think it's a perfect balance of volume and opportunity there. At 6, man, Philadelphia's staring at you at 6, and that's a little scary for me because we don't know what we have with Jalen Hurts yet. We don't know if it's even going to be Jalen Hurts or if they're going to go down the quarterback route. They haven't done anything yet in free agency. So that, as of right now, recording here on Thursday. So, there's a lot of different variables when it comes to Philadelphia, and that scares me. So, I think they're like literally like 2 spots, 3 spots away from each other. But I think those are 2 very realistic spots. You could end up with very separate range of outcomes there.
Right. Man, you got me a little tingly there talking all nice about the Dolphins. I don't get that a lot on this podcast. DJ usually digs a hole and then pushes me in it. So I appreciate
here's the thing too. I mean, like Tua stretches the field, right? And I know we didn't get to see that, and everyone's all worried about Tua's yards per completion last season when he was running a ridiculous playbook that was severely limited and clearly not built for his skill set.
Love this guy. Yeah, you make me tingly.
And so they need guys like Jamar Chase, like field stretchers, right? Guys that are going to open it up. And if you look at what Jamar Chase does, like he can run a post route just as well as he can run a slant route. So if you want to get tingly, man, like think about the way Ryan Tannehill racks up yards because AJ Brown breaks some nice slants. Like Jamar Chase can break a slant in a very similar way. So like you have that ability while the defense also has to watch out for Parker. And then you got to cover Will Fuller too in that explosive speed. I mean, assuming that he stays on the field and that he's got 2 intact hamstrings and that he's not roiding up, of course. So you got some factors there with Will Fuller, but
lots of issues.
Defenses seriously will have to figure out how to guard this trio of wide receivers, and you add in the versatility to it. What in the world?
So you have the audio.
He's left-handed, I guess.
We got a comment that says Tua throws like Tebow, and I am instantly taking it off of the screen on YouTube and Twitter because I just don't want to cry. Matt got me all excited. I can't.
I don't think Tua plays right field or wherever Tebow's playing right now.
Oh, he doesn't play baseball anymore either.
Give it up. That's all right.
Man.
Do you think it's? I'm going to go back to Tua right here real quick because I got to bring it all down a quick second because Ben's too happy. But it's hard. It's hard to trust a guy to take shots on the field when he doesn't trust himself, and he didn't trust himself last year either. So he was late. He wouldn't do it. He doesn't understand that the guys aren't going to be wide open. That's why they let Fitzpatrick do that. Tua didn't trust himself. I have to add that in there. Let's slow down on excitingness for Tua. He didn't trust himself. Plus, the Dolphins are clearly going after Deshaun Watson right now.
When you look at quarterbacks in their translation to the NFL, what you do around them is just as important as the player themselves, right? Like Sam Darnold was a great quarterback prospect coming out, and the Jets absolutely, wasted him, and now he's going to kind of bounce around a little bit, right? With a full offseason of being 100% healthy, which Tua was not this past offseason, with the offense being specifically built around him. And I think it was really telling that Miami chose to stay in-house, right, with their offensive coordinator and play calling. And they built out, I think, guys who are intentionally going to scheme for Tua. And then you have this entire offseason and adding weapons around him. I mean, you could tell me, I'm pretty sure they were just running UDFAs out there at the wide receiver spot last year for him.
The same guys.
But there's a difference between somebody coming in mid-season as a first-year player and Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is a 38-year veteran in this league.
So he's not good. I don't know. It's just he's left-handed and he's short. He's left-handed and he's short. So that's like my last criticism. Like you can't play with a left-handed quarterback, especially if he's shorter. Like that's just common sense, isn't it?
How many people wrote off Josh Allen after he was thrown way too early into a Buffalo Bills offense that wasn't built yet? So, what?
He's tall and long.
That doesn't
not left-handed.
I think we're past the point of that being I think we're past the point.
You thought I was bringing logic when I'm talking left-handed and short? You haven't listened to me enough.
Let's translate to the Power Blast because I tell DJ every time he brings up the Dolphins, Watson, Tua, like that could be the episode, and he does it every week just to get under my skin. And now another Tua supporter. Now he's under your skin too. So if you realize that DJ just sometimes gets muted, that's because I did it. Like I'll take the blame. I might do it.
He can't do it because I can mute him back, and it would just be a disaster. It would just be you, Matt.
It's your show, Matt.
It would just be me, Rand. I think I do that enough in other places.
Let's go into question 1 of the Power Blast. With that, Matt, who in your opinion is the main character on the show The Office?
Who's the main character?
Yeah.
It's got to be Jim, right?
Ooh, I love it. Love it. We've had one of those.
You kind of remind me of Jim.
Well, okay, so I was going to say that's a little bit of a loaded answer. Specifically, the way I used to like kind of have my facial hair when I was younger and in college, it looked like I kind of bared more of a resemblance to like young Jim. And I want to point out this is the not in shape version of John Krasinski. So, maybe I'm a little biased. I went by Jim for a little bit when that show was kind of at its peak. So maybe I'm just a little bit biased there.
DJ, how do you feel that like the majority of our guests so far haven't agreed with you?
What do you mean? We've had 3 and 1 did say Michael Scott?
This is 4 and 1 said. So, and if you count me, it's 20% of the people have agreed with you.
Well, then if there's 2 of us, that's almost 20. It's 20% as well.
It's Thursday. We're off the rest of the week because of March Madness. You're here throwing math at me. I'm done.
I don't know. You threw the math out there. I just threw a random number up there once you said it.
You were supposed to bypass that. Don't worry.
I feel like that's the whole plot, right? I feel like that's the character development. Michael Scott doesn't develop as a character.
Yeah, well,
a little bit.
When he gets towards the end, then he just gets kicked off because you don't know what's going to happen with him.
And
my answer, by the way, was Dwight. I think
that's a good point too. I mean, no, it's Creed. The answer is Creed. I mean, I think we can, and the Scranton Strangler.
There you go. Let's return back to the comfort zone from Matt. Let's talk a little bit about Rondale Moore. Limited sample size, but coming out of Purdue. What are your feelings on Rondale?
Rondale's a complicated one, man. It's I have no idea what to do with him in my ranking. So right now he's my wide receiver 5, and I swear, depending on who I talk about, that's too low or too high. Nobody knows where to put Rondale Moore. And he has a really interesting profile. So if you're an analytics person, he broke out over 1,000 receiving yards as a true freshman at Purdue. I think he was still 18 when he did it. So in the analytics side of things, he's an absolute heartthrob, right? But how does he follow that up? Well, he follows that up with 2 injury-plagued seasons. He half opted out, came back this and I'm not trying to rag on anybody for this past season, but it was really weird how it turned out he was injured, even though he had opted back in, and Purdue wouldn't release that he was injured until 3 weeks into the season. Then he gets on the field, and it's a mess. But for me, the biggest concern from a fantasy football perspective, despite all of the positives for Rondale Moore. So if you're not familiar with Rondale Moore, he's super freaking fast. He has good hands. He runs the bottom third of the route tree. So outs, drags, slants, he runs those things really freaking well. But my 2 biggest concerns with Rondale Moore in terms of how he'll translate to the NFL, the dude's 5'9", $175, right? And he's not small. He's jacked, right? He's a built out dude, which sounds good, but also you have to think, man, you can't hold much more weight on that frame. He can already squat 600 pounds. So it's not like he's going to bulk up. That is his frame that he can play at comfortably and be this fast athlete. So at 5'9", 175, he's living in the slot in the NFL. He's not getting moved around, right? And so there's going to be a limit there of his touchdown potential playing in the slot, especially depending on what scheme he goes to. And then my second concern, and this goes beyond Rondale Moore. You could think of a guy like Kadarius Toney for this as well. When you have a high level of manufactured production at the college level, things like getting the ball in the flat, getting the ball in the first 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, intentionally fed the ball, that doesn't translate to the NFL. I don't care how good you are. You're not getting force-fed targets in the NFL. It's too competitive, and there's too many other good playmakers around you, right? And especially not as a rookie. They're not going to force-feed rookies volume. It doesn't matter how talented you are. So Rondale Moore, man, his landing spot is going to be so critical for me to get behind him because he's super talented, but he has 2 major red flags behind him.
So you talk about you're talking about his landing spot, how important it is. I'm gonna ask a similar question to Ben, but I'm gonna narrow it down to one team. What's the one team what's your prediction for the one team he lands on, and why is it the Green Bay Packers?
It's not the Green Bay Packers, because every year I want the Green Bay Packers to take a wide receiver, and they never do, and they break my damn heart every year. So no,
You don't even know heartbreak.
What you need to do, what the Green Bay Packers need to do, is take my man Terrace Marshall, all right, and pair him up opposite of Devontae Adams, and then you're going to have something really freaking special. But I don't think I'd like him in Green Bay. I think he needs to be in a place that's going to be willing to be creative with him, right? The benefit of Green Bay is that there's volume upside, right? But and you could correct me, but I don't think he's really Green Bay's type. Like, they don't really have guys that really operate underneath all that well, do they?
Well, here's the thing. Their offense has changed with Matt LaFleur. So it's a similar type of offense, obviously, to Sean McVay, but they have one guy that like really succeeds in that offense, is Devontae Adams, if you want me to say his last name. And they're looking for that slot guy. They have like Tyler Ervin running the jet sweep. So they need a guy to fill that spot. And they've never Tavon Austin they brought in, like they haven't had that guy. They're just putting like fast guys running across so they're looking for the guy to fill that spot and a guy to run underneath, but they don't have him. And that's why I think Rondale Moore would be a good fit there, because they want to have him, a guy like that, but they just haven't. And they're just going out and finding cheap, fast guys right now just to run back and forth.
And the thing with Moore is that he could end up being somebody who is a really good NFL player that just does not equal fantasy football success, right? Like, he could be a guy that you kind of run in these creative ways, like you're saying, and he ends up with like 800 total yards a season and 4 touchdowns, which will never be exciting for fantasy football. But if he's on your NFL team, then you like him. So I could see that being his future more than this fantasy football superstar that we had kind of expected prior to the injuries, prior to the fact that he wasn't going to get any bigger than 5'9".
Right. You sort of answered my question that I was going to ask, so I will just I'll move on to question number 2 of the Power Blast instead. And I've got to ask you, Matt, is 0 a number?
I think it is, and I will specifically give my answer that 0 is a number because they have started to allow players to wear this number in college, and that is tough, man. When a player rocks the 0, I am all about it. Yeah. Like my man Eric Gray, they just announced that Eric Gray is going to be rocking 0 for Oklahoma this year, playing the running back position, and I'm like, damn, the running back rocking the 0, like that is tough. I need to see a quarterback rocking it though. That's what I need to see.
So your analysis is the fact that 0 is a number because a football player can wear it.
Yeah, man. I mean, you have to wear a number. I don't understand.
That's true. It's a number.
You have to wear something on your jersey. I mean, you can wear -74 and then you have 2 different numbers.
You can't do it.
Well, pretty soon they're going to have that too now.
This is going swimmingly for me because I'm basically.
You can't wear 100 in the NFL. You can't wear 100 in the NFL, so not a number then, right?
Not yet.
I rest my case.
This is going swimmingly because I just, not that Matt and I like connected completely on question number 1, but anything besides Michael Scott, I chalk up as a win for me. And every guest has been on my side with that one, DJ. And I agree with DJ's logic. However, every guest has brought like just good heat with that answer. And it just gives me more ammo because I never really had great ammo as to why it was a number, but I think it is.
What else is it?
Yeah, exactly.
If it's not a number, what is it?
There's a name for it, but it's not a real number. I don't know that far.
Oh, now we're tiering our numbers? Okay.
I love it. Matt, you brought up this guy a little bit when talking about Rondale Moore. Just a little bit of similarities there. It's Kadarius Toney out of Florida. Are you similar on your take on him to Rondale Moore, or do you have a little bit more conviction with him just because the sample size is a little bit bigger?
Yeah, so I actually like Rondale Moore a lot more than I like Kadarius Toney. Rondale Moore right now is my wide receiver 12, or Kadarius Toney is my wide receiver 12. Wow. So, listen, if you want to talk about the opposite of an early breakout, Kadarius Toney only had the 2020 season, and the level of manufactured production for Kadarius Toney is significantly higher than Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore had a lot of manufactured production, but you could at least see past that. For me, Kadarius Toney, man, like he doesn't translate for fantasy football. he very well may translate to the NFL and be a good role player on your team. I just can't see him being a guy that stretches the field, puts up these touchdown numbers. And I just think he's going to be really limited in what he's willing to do. So he's fascinating, man, because he is the biggest range for me in terms of what I'm hearing from the NFL and what I'm seeing on the fantasy football side. Like in mock draft ADP that we're doing, he's consistently a late second, early third round pick. And you flip that around to what the NFL is saying. And like just recently this week, it started to be like, okay, let's stop putting him in the first round of our mock drafts. Right. Just because I think folks start to see, like, you know, his athleticism is there, his speed is there. He's just not as refined of a pass catcher, and he's not as refined as a route runner. He ran an extremely limited tree at Florida, and it really was a lot of let's put him in the flat, let's scheme him into open space.
Right.
And again, it's just not something that's going to be done in the NFL for a rookie wide receiver.
DJ?
I got no questions on your guy. Go for it.
Oh, I thought you were like itching to get in there because you had one finger pointed to yourself and you were like itching. I thought that was like your sign that you really wanted to pipe in.
Ready to shave this and have only a mustache pretty soon.
That sounds disgusting.
He was still trying to think of a comeback for that 0.
No, I actually looked it up, but it's like, yeah, whatever.
But it went against you.
Well, it's a natural number. I've been wrong in the mathematic terms the whole time. It's a real number. It's not a natural number. But to me, it's not a number if you can't exist, right? You have to be able to hold it. Like I have one beer. I can hold one beer, but I can't hold 0 beers.
I have no beer.
Yeah.
Okay, but I feel like you probably see that 0 number with your fantasy rosters a lot, right? Like 0 wins on the season.
Talking shit about fantasy. You know what? I'm on to college basketball right now, so I don't even know why I'm here.
I love this because like last year when we talked about quarterbacks, Matt and I were on the same page about everything, and we were totally like going against what DJ said, and now we're just running it back. We're going for 2, baby. Bruce Arians.
I was probably right last year about everything too.
You and your assumptions. No, Matt. So I'm a big Gators fan, and Kadarius Toney was.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah,
I appreciate that.
They throw shoes and shit, dude.
Yeah, like, exactly. Toney was that player though that you didn't want to have to rely on, but at the same time, if he got the ball in his hands, you're like, this could go to the house. Like I'm struggling to find another player that in college football that I've watched recently that was more difficult to bring down with one guy than Kadarius Toney. And you're right though. Like he started flashing towards the end of his career. Like he flashed early, but he didn't put it together like the entire, and I don't even want to say the entire route tree, but started making more plays when it was just outside of just quick passes. Like he started putting it together a little bit later. I guess I'll ask you, what like % chance do you think that wasn't a fluke? And maybe we will see him excel without just having to scheme up plays where you get him the ball and then, man, hopefully he can create something.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, you know, it's interesting. It's like Kadarius Toney was this guy where, you know, those of us who are like, you know, way too into watching film and watching, you know, the full Florida offense and just looking at all these guys in the offseason, you see these pops of Kadarius Toney. And we were the ones kind of out here being like, hey, Kadarius Toney, like, get to know this name. Like, this is going to be a guy. And then all of a sudden his hype just goes like way too far in the other direction. Yeah. And it's like, no, let's rein it in a little bit. And the other thing that I can't get out of my mind, thinking about the Florida situation in particular, is Dan Mullen is known for being this guy that hides his quarterbacks, right? Because he's so good at putting these guys in the right spot. So it's difficult for me. You know, when you look at that hit percentage, it is low for me just because I need to trust that the coach is going to get him in the right spot. And draft capital is going to help that, right? You know, so maybe his odds go from 20 to 40% if he does go day 1 or early day 2, because then a team has shown an investment in him.
Right.
But I can't project him with a high level of confidence, despite the fact that, you know, he has had these pops of athleticism. And that's the word you keep going back to. Like Kadarius Toney, he was a quarterback in high school. When he stepped onto the field at Florida, they wanted him to play running back. They moved him around to wide receiver. They thought he might play quarterback. So he's a return specialist too for him. So this man literally does it all. But it seems like a little bit of like a jack of all trades, master of none situation.
Yeah, I can't hate on that. Like I said, like being a fan, you want to really like this guy. And Yeah, I love him as a college player. I struggle when people talk to me about him as a pro prospect. I'm like, just temper your expectations. Like, don't mock him in the first. If
Right.
someone takes him, I will be surprised. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's like, I say all the time, like, I don't dislike any prospects. I just dislike the price that you slap on them. And it's not
Exactly.
fair to some guys. Like,
All right.
let me like Kadarius Toney in day 2.
Yep.
Don't make me dislike him in day 1.
In day 1. Yep.
Right.
No, that's great. Matt, if you had the opportunity to know the exact age at which you were going to die, would you want to know?
Oh, wow. That's a
PowerBlast,
good question.
baby.
No, I don't think I want to. No, I would just let it ride, man.
Here's the one that I don't ever know how to respond because I'm still on the fence with this. I feel like every week I kind of teeter on it. I like the idea of just being able to live bulletproof if I know I'm not going to die until 80. But at the same time, I don't want to be sitting in my house being like, well, today's the day.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be paralysis by analysis more than anything, man. You know what I mean? Like, let's just let the plan be, and let's just ride it out with what we got. I couldn't put a number on it. That would drive me nuts. And then what if the number was really high? What if they were like, yeah, 120, and I'm like, 120? What am I doing to live that long? What's going on?
Yeah. You found like, I don't know, you started eating like awesome when you turned like 40 or some shit. Also, your use of Plan B has never been used in that way on this podcast. It's usually used a different way.
Yeah, that was the story of my college career. Plan B, baby. Let's go.
I love it. This next wide receiver, I will admit, I need to do a little bit of homework on. So I gave Mikey, our boy who contributes to Loaded Box Podcast, I gave him the opportunity to ask a question on this guy, Diamy Brown, North Carolina. And I'm just going to skip right to his question, Matt, because I think you're going to probably end up hitting on it at some point here during your breakdown. But a lot of people perceive him kind of just as like this only vertical threat. And Mikey doesn't believe that's true. So he's curious to hear what's your take on that take.
Yeah, that's interesting. Dyami Brown, he's another guy, man, that I just think we're slapping way too high of a price tag on him right now. For me, he's always been like a round 3 guy, and I've liked him in that spot. I thought he's done well at North Carolina. And now all of a sudden recently, folks are putting him mid round 2, top of round 2. Yeah. And I just don't think he's that kind of wide receiver. And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? For me, he is a solid day 3 prospect. And I'm not going to take those guys early on round 2 of a fantasy football draft. So he is primarily, I think maybe, to answer this question specifically, I think he works best along the boundary. And he does that because he's got good straight line acceleration and he builds good long speed downfield. So I think that's why folks like him, along the sideline. He also has good athleticism. So those like jump balls along the sideline, they work well for him. But you can move him around the field. He does work well with the ball in his hands after the catch. He has fluidity and agility to his game, which are things that help you kind of operate over the middle of the field. So I think you can play him over the middle, and he might have to, right? He might get moved around playing a more of that flanker role in the NFL. I don't know if he'll ever be like a true X receiver, but I do think Diamy works best along the boundary.
Yeah. Like I said, I have a little bit more tape to watch on him. That's one prospect I haven't been able to dive into. When I do, is there something specific outside of just being a vertical threat that you should watch for him? Like, is there a strength that you've picked up that maybe not others have? Like, what's something to keep an eye on when you're watching his tape?
Yeah, one like good, his hands are really a struggle for me, right? Because at times he displays this excellent handwork and he waits a little bit to the last minute, which can be good and bad before creating some separation with his handwork at the last minute. So that's why he does so well in contested catch situations. But I love when receivers have that ability to kind of time up the pass, go up and get it, be aggressive, go up over the defender. So at times he's got this like ridiculous handwork where you're like, this is nice. But then at other times you see the mental drops. And for me, like drops on tape equal drops in the rankings. It's not something I'm willing to just brush over and say, well, he had a good breakout age. So, or, well, look at the rest of the stats. If he can't catch the ball, man, we're in Jalen Reagor territory. All right. So, and his hands aren't that bad, not by any means, but it's a yellow flag for me. I would pay attention to his hands and just know that, don't get too excited or deterred after watching a game or two. He's somebody that I think you really benefit from watching over the course of like 3, 4, 5 games.
I like the use of the yellow flag. Usually you only hear red flags when talking about prospects. So I like your cautionary flag there. DJ, I know you wanted to get in with something because you're wearing a Carolina hat. We all know it's not because of their football team, but no one loved betting on the University of North Carolina in football last year more than DJ.
My thing is, and I've talked about this with Najee Harris and guys like that. Do you ever look at? Well, I'm getting to a point. Can you let me fucking finish for once in my life? Do you ever look at the team that they're on or the type of explosiveness and factor that in, and I'll almost like have to bring somebody down? I do this with like a Najee Harris. Like I've vaulted Javonte ahead of Najee because I think Najee's obviously really good, but I think the fact that he has maybe the best offensive line in all of college football, or did have the best offensive line, and I watched Javonte, I just think his skill set is better for the NFL. Obviously, this team had one of the most explosive passing offenses in the league. Do you consider those things when you're drafting? Like, let's bring our expectations down because look at the guys around them.
I think if anything, you look at that North. That's interesting. You use Javonte Williams as the example because for me, I look at the North Carolina offense and go like, wow, they had 2 guys put up over 1,200 rushing yards this past season. Javonte Williams wasn't even the highest rusher on his team. Like Michael Carter outrushed him. And so that's a reason actually I absolutely take offense into account, but it's one of the reasons I'm not as high on Javonte Williams as a lot of folks are. You could obviously take offensive line into account. The way that I kind of do it is I look for when presented the chance, do running backs create their own space? How do they operate in tight space? So like a really good example, I'm really high on Javian Hawkins compared to consensus at Louisville. Javian Hawkins was operating with garbage in terms of an offensive line, and they knew he was going to run the ball. And a lot of the times he creates space in really tight areas. Like he gets extra yardage despite it looks like he's absolutely done for. When I look at a guy like Javonte Williams, I'm seeing him operate really well in large gaps, in open space. It's one of the reasons that I faded Devin Singletary, because that was kind of Darrell Henderson, the same thing. You look at these guys that operate really well in open space. That's not what I look for. I watch Javonte Williams play, and, I see him do well when that hole opens up behind that good offensive line, but I also see when he runs himself right into the back of his guards, every 4th play. And he's going to have to operate in tight space in the NFL. You just don't work in space in the same way at the next level. So I absolutely do take the offense into account, but kind of for a different reason, I guess.
I think we were watching 2 different tapes because the reason I love Javonte is because I think he's great. He always finds a way to get 5 yards, whether there's a hole there or not. And I've seen him. I think I've seen him run into an offensive lineman a couple of times, but it seems like he bounces off, disappears, and finds a way to get those 5, 6, 7 yards in those areas. And his just on contact, like it's hard to bring him down one-on-one.
But you don't get that second chance at the next level. You know what I mean?
True.
Like
Aaron Jones does it all the time.
at the next level, man, you're done half the time, right?
I don't know. I think
so. It's a really if you want to go back to that yellow flag, it's almost a game ender for me. If a running back that doesn't have consistent vision, because you could be the best. It's another reason I'm not high on Chuba. He doesn't have consistent vision either, so it's difficult, man. It's really difficult, and it's not something that improves at the next level. Right? Like if you don't display good vision, you're not going to magically get better at it at the NFL level.
I have him as my best visionary running back.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do. I watched Owls every single game of him, like live.
DJ disagrees. DJ's dog disagrees. We're over here talking about Diamy Brown, and then DJ just brings in his boy. You love talking about Javonte Williams. That is.
I was just kind of trying to compare the offenses.
I get it.
Yeah, but I mean, you need to take offense into consideration. You absolutely do. You need to look at the way a player is used, how he's fit, if he's misused, and then you can project out a little bit and his best type of landing spot in the NFL. It's not just about volume and opportunity; it's about fit as well.
100%. This is a Loaded Box podcast, so we do like to talk about drinking and supporting drinking. So, Matt, I've got to ask you, what is the correct number of alcoholic drinks to consume prior to meeting your girl's dad for the first time?
Oh my gosh. I think the first time I met my fiance's dad or her whole family, it was like a beach event, which like for us does equal drinking for sure.
Yeah.
So
100%.
I think you gotta get a couple in, right? Or else you're just gonna be too nervous, but you can't go crazy. So I think like 2. Like I think 2 is a good spot. I'll start getting a little overconfident at 2. So you know what I mean? Like anything more than that, like I don't wanna try to act, like too arrogant.
Not bad. I would say the consensus, DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, has the consensus kind of been 1 to 3?
Yeah, I know me and Zach had said 3 just because that's when you start to get a little loose,
Yeah.
I'm surprised my man Zach didn't say like 6. All right. He's got that Minnesota style. All right. He's got a.
We're from Wisconsin. So
Matt, you should go back and watch some of that episode because it starts with Zach being just kind of like just normal. He's like really by about minute mark, like 45 or 50. He's more slouchy. His face is a little bit red. The eyes are really squinty. He is loose Zach. Like we gave him a new nickname that day. He was real loose. He came out. There was like a clip that we pulled of it. He's like, "I'm getting loaded on the loaded box."
It was really.
That's hilarious.
Vodka bangs.
Yeah.
Oh my god, he's a nut, man.
We're doing March Madness party starting tomorrow. I think we're wondering what all we should bring. DJ, I think we need to load up on vodka bangs and see if we can get Zach sauced.
Sounds like trouble.
It does sound like trouble.
That's an undergrad move, man. What are you doing?
I don't know. He just loved it though. Big cup with a straw. He's just sipping on it.
We got Mount St. Mary's versus Texas Southern that I'm gambling on right now.
Ooh,
so
that's
let's
starting
move this thing around. Oh yeah,
Madness style. Matt, we got one more wide receiver for you. It's a guy that I've just recently started digging into. Dwayne Eskridge, not a very familiar name with kind of like your common NFL or NFL draft fan, but what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm a big Eskridge fan. I've been trying to pump up the Eskridge train here for a little while. So definitely an under-the-radar prospect playing at Western Michigan, but he is explosive. Like, I know we were talking pre-show about the level of about Will Fuller. Like, we're talking a similar level of explosion there for Dwayne Eskridge. He's a little undersized coming out of the NFL or coming out of college. He's 5'9", 188, but he really holds his ground well. He did get pressed playing in the MAC, and he gets off of the line of scrimmage really well. Everyone talks about his explosiveness. I love his release off the line of scrimmage. That is something that translates really well. He cuts a mean slant. He's got good athleticism. He'll go up and get the ball. And I got to tell you, like from the NFL side of things, he is climbing. I will be shocked if he's not a day 2 selection. Wow. I fully expect that. Slant. He cuts a mean slant, man.
That's a fucking, you say that it's like dancing or something. Like you cut a rug, right? I was like,
yeah.
I've never heard that term.
It's my honestly, it's like my favorite thing for a wide receiver. If you can run a sharp slant route that you create separation with off the first step, you're untouchable in the NFL. I mean, that's how AJ Brown wins. That's when Odell Beckham was at his peak. That's how he was winning, right? Like,
100%.
It's difficult to guard that. Even the best defenders. And if you have the explosion,
Antonio Freeman.
Yeah.
Blast from the past.
I thought you were going a different route there. But you know what I mean? So I really love that. And I think he's going to be a day 2 guy for sure. And then he's going to catch on in fantasy circles. So get him on your board now so you can be ahead of your league mates.
I think in the player profile that I wrote for him on Loaded Box, I thought I think you blew me out of the water with your analysis. I liked mine. I think I called him an RPO slant catching machine is how
There you go. I like that.
I do. So I gave my biggest knock on him. So I'm going to have you put up with a little bit of my reading for a second. I want to see if you agree with this.
Okay.
My reading was also, while Eskridge has legit NFL speed, he doesn't offer the elite contact balance that we see from some of the other smaller receivers in this year's draft. You'd like to see him work through tacklers and basically pinball off of them, but it appears that you really only see that in flashes versus how consistent you see it with guys like Kadarius Toney and Rondale Moore. Do you agree with that take, or do I need to watch more tape?
It's kind of difficult. I definitely wouldn't call contact balance one of his strengths by any means, but he's usually creating separation before the catch. True. So for me, there's not a lot of he's not getting dumped off the ball in the first 5 yards and asked to make moves after the catch. But when kind of building out my model in the way that I grade these guys, yards after catch is one of the lowest factors for me for wide receivers because it just doesn't translate at the next level, right? Like N'Keal Harry, we're still waiting for that to come through. Even a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who I loved, right? He was my wide receiver 1 last year, but yards after catch is not the way that he won in Dallas, right? You just don't operate in space in the same way. So for me, the ability to create separation before the catch is what you're looking for. And that's why I like Eskridge so much, because half the time he gets it done before the catch.
Right.
Now it's against subpar defenders, and that's going to change at the next level. So hopefully that holds. But I think you're right. He's not somebody that I would be excited about to drop off in the flat and ask him to go and break off a big play.
Right. Do you put much stock into his age? Because I think he redshirted like his true senior season. So he played 5 years in college and he'll be 24 when the draft happens. So you think a team will take that into consideration between, are we going to go Eskridge or are we going to go this route? And it's like, well, this guy's 22, this guy's 24. Do you think teams will put into like a factor into that?
I really don't think so. I think, I understand the analytics of the early breakout ages, but that's not something that I'm super concerned about with Eskridge, and especially a wide receiver, right? I think for most of these NFL teams, after day one, you're just looking for a guy that you're going to get production out of in his first contract, right? Like you are not looking for this long-term. If he hits, and that's great. But outside of the first round, I think you're looking for a guy that's going to produce for your team over the next couple of years. And so if you're looking and you're saying, all right, we'll have him until he's 28 versus we'll have him until he's 26, that wouldn't bother me from an NFL GM side of things. And I don't think it's going to affect most NFL GMs in the way that they approach the draft.
Right. DJ, do you have anything you'd like to add to Eskridge or the analysis there? Or should we go to question 5 on the Power Blast?
Are you a big gamer?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was not question 5 of the Power Blast.
With your whole setup that you have going on there, you look like you game a little bit. You put it on Twitch or something?
I don't stream. I don't stream any gaming, but I like to mix it up.
I thought you looked like you had a gaming setup, so I was like, "Is this guy a gamer or what's going on here?"
Yeah, I got 3 monitors in front of me, so
awesome. Where's the camera on the fucking ceiling or what?
on top of this monitor here, then we got the second, we got the middle one, and then so we keep our options open here. Call of Duty, League of Legends, whatever we're playing here. NCAA football 13 doesn't matter. Yes,
14.
14.
Oh, yeah, I don't got 14. I got 13.
What?
But
you gotta do 14.
Hey, man, I'll take what I can get.
At that age, man. Are you the guy that sniped Myers Leonard? Caused his controversy? Or no?
My gosh. That man took himself down.
The funniest thing I saw was like, little did that guy know that shot him in Call of Duty. A week later, he would shoot him all the way to Oklahoma because I think he just got traded. So I'm like, not a bad tweet.
I'll tell you what, man, when I'm playing Call of Duty, I could go like 1 in 20 in a round. If I get one good snipe, I'm like, this is a success, man. It's fun. That's the best part of Call of Duty to me.
That's how I rolled as well. I was terrible at that game.
Yeah, me too.
Zach, question 5 of the Power Blast is my all-time favorite question that we've ever asked on a podcast, but it's a tough one to follow depending on your interest. So here it is. Let's just see what happens.
Oh boy.
What statistics do you think made up Ice Cube's triple-double back in 1993?
What?
That's a top 3 answer we've ever received, I think. What, as in you need me to repeat the question, or as you need an explanation as to what the question means?
I honestly, we're talking about like Ice Cube, the artist? Ice Cube?
Sure
and
is.
What made up his triple-double?
Correct.
So like this is a like a general life success of Ice Cube, and what I have no idea, man. I got nothing for you.
Just translate it.
I got nothing.
So this is where the question originates. It's from a lyric from his song "Today Was a Good Day," and the lyric is, "Get me on the court and I'm trouble. Last week fucked around and got a triple double." So it's been years, and I'm like, you know what? If Ice Cube's hooping, what the hell stats are making up that triple-double? And honestly, your boy, Zach, didn't understand the reference either. But I'll let DJ say what he said because you always remember compared.
I can't remember what Zach said, but it was very similar to mine.
Go ahead and just give yours because it was essentially Zach's answer too.
Mine was blunts, backhands, and bitches.
Blunts, backhands, and bitches made up Zach and DJ's triple double for Ice Cube. And they both blew me out of the water there. And I have the official worst answer because my answer was rebounds, blocks, and turnovers.
I was just assuming it was talking about a basketball game, man.
See,
I think. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, see, my answer wasn't the best because Zach didn't even give an answer.
True.
There it is. Zach, if you could go back in time, what would your answer have been?
What do you mean? Who's Zach?
Oh, so that's what I was going to bring up earlier. I was
the same guy.
I was going to put under on number of minutes we were into the podcast of when I called him Zach because we already talked to his boy Zach, and last week we had on Zach Hicks. So I'm like, just a matter of time before I call Matt Zach.
I was like, why do you keep calling him Zach? Who's the fucking Zach right now? I was confused.
Hashtag Bush Light, baby.
Yeah, fucking that's an insult. That's an insult. Zach is a shitty ass Vikings fan. At least he likes the Giants. I'm insulted for you, Matt.
You shouldn't be intimidated by the Vikings. They're so far beneath you in that division. So
everybody in the division is so far beneath us.
It's like how everybody else treats the Giants in the East. It's not even worth shit talking them.
I have to pretend like I care about them, but they're just little brother, right? We lay down and pet your belly. You know, you can talk your shit. Maybe win one game every 4 years or whatever.
I think you mixed your metaphors a little bit there.
They submit to us and we pet their belly and let them, enjoy us petting their belly every now and then.
I love it. DJ, I have to contractually obligated to ask you this question. Do you have anything else that you would like to ask Matt? Yeah, let me finish. See, I didn't let you finish earlier.
You watch any March Madness, Matt, or are you just strictly football?
Oh, well, I'm a Tennessee guy, so I'm excited to see how they could cause me pain again.
Oh yeah, they stink.
Yeah, they blew. They had Alabama in the semis of the SEC tournament. They had double digits on them at halftime, and they blew it. So we'll see how else they can, just absolutely stress me out, take some years off my life.
That defense is going to keep them in games, DJ.
No, they're going to lose right away.
Sorry that you're wrong.
I got the upside. I mean, here's the thing with Tennessee. Like, if they are on,
here we go.
They're one of the best teams, but they're not. So they're going to suck.
Every time them in Florida, I'm out on both of those two teams because I can't watch either one of them play. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, neither of them are going to make too much noise, but if one of them would, it would be Tennessee because of that defense. That's like a consistent thing with them. Like, they play really good defense.
I just think they're bad at basketball. I'm just excited, man. I honestly, it was hard for me to even get on this podcast. I texted Ben before. I'm like, what are we talking about? And how do you expect me to do a fucking podcast? How do you expect me to do a podcast today on football when all I can think about is college basketball? This is all I've been doing for the last week.
Matt, basically since like middle school, like a core group of us, we haven't gone to work. We haven't gone to school. We have basically just sat around 4 televisions. This is like the 18th podcast in a row I've said the word television. I'm really showing my age here. But that's what we do. We drink a lot of booze, we eat a lot of food, and we watch a lot of basketball. So starting tomorrow, it's going to be on.
If this was tomorrow, right now, I would be at Ben's house because that's where I'm heading off at about 7:30 in the morning.
Yep.
That's great, man. That sounds like an absolute blast.
Yeah, it's unreal. Matt, before we let you go, I'm going to ask one question about things that are going on now. So far through free agency, what's your top move? It doesn't have to be like the best one, but maybe an underrated move. What's a good take you've got on a free agent signing?
Oh, the top move. I mean, I don't know if they're like nothing has gotten me that excited. We talked about how I didn't think Curtis Samuel was as exciting as we thought. I want Juju to land, man. I'm excited to see where Juju lands. I keep saying he needs to go to the Chargers, so that would get me excited. I'd like Will Fuller to Miami. I know we talked about that, but I really do. I think I like that more for Tua than I do Will Fuller. And shout out to none of the wide receivers for picking Baltimore. So let's just hope that keeps up because that's just a game ender. But
I agree. How is he going to fit into? No, I agree on that. But how is how's Juju going to fit in with like being a third wide receiver if he goes to the Chargers again? He's in a situation where there's just about too many wide receivers as he ends up there.
Yeah, but he did fine when he wasn't the guy. And also Mike Williams is playing on his 5th-year option right now. And if they extend him, like he's not going to get money, right? And he doesn't stay healthy half the time anyway. So if we're talking about, questions about whether Juju can be like the guy, he doesn't have to be, right? Like let Keenan Allen be the guy and give Justin Herbert, your young quarterback, some really good options to work with. So I've never had Juju on a fantasy roster because he was always too expensive. And I want to buy the dip. Like I want him to dip just to get him like one time.
Ooh,
so
he's talking investments here.
Yeah, man. He's the Bitcoin.
not anymore.
I don't get it, but I like it.
He's AMC.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
short squeezes ass.
Is AJ Green going to Arizona a chance to rejuvenate some sort of ending of a career, or are we just watching a guy flame out in a different city?
Well, for fantasy purposes, it does nothing.
Right.
I think for NFL purposes, it's fantastic. Like I really think he could go and be a great contributor on this offense. But it's an offense that still has Christian Kirk. It still has Andy Isabella, who I haven't forgotten about, that obviously has DeAndre Hopkins there.
Mm-hmm.
And as of now, Larry Fitzgerald is still there.
Somehow,
and
yes.
Yeah. And so I don't know if they expect them to both be on the offense at the same time. And this is a team that I've consistently kind of pegged as could be going after a guy like Brevin Jordan or another tight end in the draft.
Exactly. Yep.
And I think they really want to get somebody in there because you saw they started to use Dan Arnold a little bit. And I think they're like, okay, wait, but what if we had somebody that wasn't Dan Arnold, right? So I think they're going to go and get a tight end, like an athletic type guy. So I think it's not great for AJ Green, but it's good for your Kyler Murray, right? If you're into for Kyler Murray already. And I think it's just good if you're a Cardinals fan. It seems like this free agency is a lot of good for NFL and not exciting for fantasy football.
Yep. No, I totally agree with that. Matt, real quick, before we let you go, why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners one more time where they can find all of your recent work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of talking about these rookies as we're talking about here, the best spot is going to be patreon.com/theFFeducator. That's where I put out a ton of content there, but my rookie rankings, Devy boards, dynasty boards, cornerstone boards, and ADP, all of that is $3 a month at patreon.com. So I try to make that as accessible as possible. We're 80-something rookie profiles deep right now and trying to hit like at least 100 by the time we get to the draft. But all the writing is at NFL Draft Bible or si.com/NFL/draft. And then we have the podcast, which is the Rookie Big Board on YouTube, as well as wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely be sure to check that out. As for us, check us out on Twitter, as always, at Loaded Box. Our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. We also have some draft profiles. I think we have 22 or 23. You said you're going for 100. We're going for 24. We've got NFL mock drafts. We've got our dynasty rankings, our dynasty mocks. Everything you need in life is there. Next episode, like last week, we don't know what it'll be yet, but it'll be dope as fuck. Matt, can't say it too much. Thanks for having you on. Love your insight. Love the way you make me feel inside with all that positive Dolphins talk and just being on my team there against DJ. So I have to say thanks one more time.
Hey, man. Episode 301. 301. Was a good
time. Once again, I forgot to do 301.
You said it almost 0 times.
Yeah.
You're right. We're bad at this. DJ, I'm blaming you again.
Yeah, whatever.
Out.
Bye.